Thursday, July 28th, 2022, Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today we're going to look at money supply, M2. We're going to look at the Fed. And it's all very complicated, but that's why I've always talked about the classical definition of inflation and deflation for that matter. But to me, it looks like the Fed has shown the first signs of pivoting or succumbing to pressure to stop this tightening policy. And I do this for tightening because I'm going to show you proof that the Fed and Jay Powell are not being very truthful about the situation, what they're really doing. They're saying one thing and doing something else. So that's what we're going to look at today. Before we start, I want to go back to my Merriam-Webster dictionary from the 70s because up until then, definitions hadn't been changed for inflation. The Keynesians hadn't really taken total control of the situation. And I see some of you commenting saying that I should learn about inflation, that inflation is rising prices. And I've tried to debate you and explain to you what inflation really is, and still some people don't get it. I've gone past really trying to convince those people, but for those of you who want to listen, let's go to the definition here and why it's so important for us to know the true definition of inflation. So according to the Merriam-Webster Pocket Dictionary, it's an abnormal increase in the volume of money and credit, resulting in a substantial and continuing rise in the general price level. And deflation would be the opposite. So we could read deflation as an abnormal decrease in the volume of money and credit, resulting in a substantial and continuing drop in the general price level. Correct? So that's why I think it's really important to use the terms inflation and deflation correctly. And I guess I'm victim to using it how it's used by everyone. The 99.9% of the people who don't understand it. And people think that the CPI, for example, going up is inflation. But I've said that it's rising prices, consumer price index. It's a measure of prices, and it's a consequence of inflation. And as von Mises and the Austrians have said, you don't necessarily have all prices rising when you have true inflation. Some prices are still dropping and some prices are rising. So what we've got now, we've got the consumer prices and all the basic necessities of life rising. Yes, commodities have dropped recently, but they're going to keep rising, in my opinion. And what we're seeing now dropping in price are asset prices. And asset prices have been rising since 2008. Yes, there have been some crises in the middle, like the 2020 crisis, but the Fed has kept inflating, and the government, they have kept inflating the money and the credit, the QE, the zero rates. And what we're seeing now is actually a decrease in prices. And why we're seeing that? Well, because if you look at Rafi Farber's analysis, and he looks at inflation and deflation like me in the classical sense, he's found out that for the first time since September 2008, the quarterly annualized growth rate of M2 is gone negative. So basically, that is deflation. And I've said in the past that deflation is almost impossible in the fiat currency system because the central banks, they will come and make sure that doesn't happen by creating more and more money and credit, or currency and credit, if you want to call it. And I think it's going to be very soon when the Fed pivots. And I think the balance sheet is going to go through the roof. I think they're going to find an excuse, not just the Fed, but the administration, to stimulate not just monetarily through the Fed, but also fiscally. And what will that excuse be? I don't know. You can take your pick. One of them could be this saber rattling, this standoff, so to speak, as it relates to Taiwan and Nancy Pelosi. Maybe I saw the U.S. Navy sent some a fleet, a carrier fleet, or a lot of naval vessels near the waters there in Taiwan recently. And the Chinese, of course, are probably not very happy. So that's what's going on. So yes, we've got deflation. It's not huge, but it's significant. And Rafi Farber has been covering this for a while now, for the last few weeks or maybe month. And every time that happens, when the 13-week average for M2 goes very near zero or below zero, we see a major financial crisis. It happened in 1929, it happened in 1987, and it happened in 2008, and it's happening now. So I highly recommend you subscribe to Rafi Farber's YouTube channel. Rafi Farber is the name of the YouTube channel. And you should consider also subscribing to the Endgame Investor. It's a newsletter service he provides on Seeking Alpha. You just have to Google the Endgame Investor and you'll find it. I think it's about, I don't think it's that much. It's really worth subscribing to, I would say. And he writes regularly. So that's what's going on. We're seeing the Fed already starting to change its mind. Of course, yesterday they raised rates by 75 basis points. As expected, some people were expecting 1%. But one of the things that Jay Powell said after the announcement, because he had a press conference that started half an hour after the announcement, is that they're not going to try to give a forward guidance anymore. They're going to go meeting by meeting because they need to look at the data. Again, he refused to say anything about recession. He said, we're not here to say whether we're in a recession or not. Maybe he was given a message from the Biden administration not to talk about it. And I think that's what it was. One of the things he said, though, and I did listen to the press conference. You can go on the Fed's YouTube channel. I don't know if it's still up there. He said it is likely appropriate to slow the increases at some point. That's the increases in rates, of course. The other thing the Fed or the FOMC said, and this was not at the press conference by Powell, but when the announcement came out, is that they're going to be highly attentive about inflation, that they're watching it like a hawk, right? But my gripe with that is, where were they 15 months ago when inflation was, or rising prices really? You see, I fell into the trap, but they used that term. Where were they? Yeah, when prices were rising above 2%. And they dragged their feet, and I think they kept doing QE after the CPI went above 2%. They did. I think someone noted the other day, over $1 trillion of QE, despite the fact that prices were rising, what people call inflation. So Grady here as well. He says U.S. dollar dropped, everything reacted. The charts at the service are playing out nicely. fighting inflation was maybe not so important after all. Well, that's because they got monetary deflation, and I'm sure the Fed's watching that M2. So here's how deceptive and yes, economical with the truth the Federal Reserve is being now, especially the chairman, Jay Powell. And that's worrying. And very few people are questioning that. I think someone on Twitter said that I'm the only one alongside with him and Peter Schiff were questioning that. The people at the press conference, the journalists, their questions were all softball questions. And yes. So listen to this. I'm not making it up.
In addition, we are continuing the process of significantly reducing the size of our balance sheet.
So there you go. You saw that balance sheet is flat as as the Netherlands, and he's saying they're substantially decreasing or significantly decreasing the balance sheet. Anyway, with that, let's quickly look at where the markets are this morning. It's just before 8:30 a.m. London time. So yes, gold right now is up just over $6. We're trading around 1740. High has been 1745. The low has been 1733. So we were up about 1/3%. I think we were up about 1%, just over 1% last night. Spot silver is up 22 cents or just over 1% this morning. The high's been 1940. The low's been 1904. Right now we're at 1931. Yeah, the stock market rallied yesterday. Someone noted as well on Twitter that in the last few meetings, the day of the meeting, the stock market has rallied well. And then the next day, it's had a big drop. So we'll have to wait and see. Right now, it's early days. The Dow futures is down 5 points. The NASDAQ futures down 54. And the S&P is down 5. FTSE futures up 20. Eurostoxx is up 22. And now to the currencies. Yes, sterling rallied about 1% after the Fed announcement and the press conference. I think the euro rallied about 0.4, maybe a little more. So right now, cable or sterling is unchanged, 121.65. The euro is down slightly, 101.94. And the dollar is down 2/3% versus the yen, 135.76. So this first glimmer of a pivot is kind of hurting the dollar, especially against the yen, because the Bank of Japan is still really dovish. So if the Fed shows hints of dovishness, that will hurt the dollar versus the yen. Dollar is unchanged versus the Swiss franc, just below 96.00. And the dollar is unchanged versus the yuan, 674.60. Dollars unchanged really versus the ruble. We're trading around 60 like yesterday. To the other currencies, Aussie dollar is unchanged, 69.90. The dollar is down slightly versus the Canadian dollar, 128.14. And the Kiwi dollar is up 0.2% at 62.72. So let's quickly go through the general commodities. We got WTI crude up 1.5%, 98.12. Brent is up 1.5 as well at 103.10. High grade copper up 2.25% at 350.70. Natural gas is up 1/3% at 8.58. Let's quickly check the Dutch natural gas, European nat gas. Yeah, that's just below 200 right now. We're at 199.50, still highly elevated compared to 2 years ago. And to finish off, let's quickly look at the Treasury curve, the bond market. The 10-year yield actually is up almost 9 basis points overnight, which is quite a lot. It's at 282. The 2 year is up 4 at 301. So the curve has disinverted a little bit. It's still inverted, of course, by about 20 basis points. So later on today, we're going to have GDP. I guess a recession now doesn't mean 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP anymore. It's whatever Brandon says it is. I think we all know how the economy is doing, so if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit the like button. Please share it far and wide. Think about subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet. And I wish you all a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye.